Eran Shir is the CEO founder of Nexar, which makes and by the way, Nexar, am I pronouncing that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So Eran Shir is the CEO founder of Nexar, which makes every car smart and is building the world's safe driving network. Having raised over 100 million from top tier investors to make this a reality. Much prior to founding Nexar, Eran founded Dapper, a web service in the fields of semantic web and digital marketing, which after 4 years was acquired by Yahoo in 2010, at which point Eran became senior director and head of Yahoo's Creative Innovation Center, which was tasked with working on the technologies for the next generation of creatives across mobile, video, dynamic, and rich media ads. After Eran's time at Yahoo, he joined as entrepreneur in residence at Aleph, a Tel Aviv-based venture capital firm, where he focused on big data, cryptocurrencies, and market disruption. All right, so there's a lot to unpack in very little time. So let's do this. And thank you for your patience and for letting someone else tell your a quick resume of the entire life. I love how somehow life can be cut into a few sentences.
Yeah.
So Eran, where did you grow up, and what was your first entrepreneurial experience? I know you spent some time in the army as well.
Right.
But please.
Right. So I grew up in the northern part of Israel in a place maybe many people have heard of, called Nazareth or Upper Nazareth.
Oh, Nazareth. Right? Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was like a small city just next to the old Nazareth that we all know from Jesus Christ and all that. And so it was a sort of a periphery town. And I really, from very early age, was passionate about physics and science. So like my life in a broad strokes can be summarized as like from age 10 till age 30, I wanted to be a physics professor. And then I switched gears and became an entrepreneur. But my first entrepreneurial experience actually was happening when I was in the army. I was in the Air Force, and actually I was in this program where you do your first degree before you go to the army. And so I did a first degree in physics and stuff, and then I joined the Air Force, and I ended up being part of a founding team for a new unit, right? Like I was just a lowly, junior soldier, but we were only like 10 people at the time, and we were the founders of Israel's anti-ballistic missile defense system unit. So it's a system that operates something called the Arrow missile system, right? Like Arrow was the first anti-ballistic defense system deployed in the world. So it was quite exciting times. I'm talking about like close to 30 years now. This is like 97, wow. 98, right? So that was, amusingly, that was my first kind of entrepreneurial experience. After that, or during that, I did my master's in physics. I did, like very theoretical stuff, like quantization of black holes, Hawking radiation, things like that. And then switched to complex systems. That was really the gateway drug for me to move into entrepreneurship.
That's wild to be part of such a distinguished group of individuals at such a young age. I mean, just having a group of 10 of you handling something this powerful. That was the first of its kind during that time. That's crazy. Did you understand at that moment how unique that situation was, or not? As you grow older, you reflect back and say, "Holy crap, that was crazy."
Yeah. So I think we had an inkling. I think the best inkling was just that every week some other hotshot general or ambassador of the US or something like that will come and visit, right? Like, so we had this,
Got it.
all of this. Actually, there was some serious time where we were working with a bunch of American officers that were kind of deploying some systems connecting to the broader radars that the US has deployed and things like that. So, one of the amusing things, that one of the anecdotes that we had at the time, I remember that when we had those visits from American officers or functionaries from the Pentagon, they would say, they'll speak to you in English, but don't assume they don't know Hebrew, right? So just
I love that.
So yeah, that was the time.
So I wanna start your entrepreneurial journey with Cognitive View Systems.
Yeah.
I'd love for you. Can you share what Cognitive View Systems did, and if there was a lesson or a takeaway from that 7-year experience?
Yeah. So I wasn't in Cognitive View for 7 years. I was there for something like 3 years after founding the company, and that's, by the way, one of the lessons. So Cognitive View, we started it probably in the worst time possible, like 2001. Just after the crash, the bubble burst. And we were quite ambitious, which is a good thing, but also clueless. So basically,
which can be a good thing, I guess. Ignorance can be helpful. So
yes. Let's touch on that later, because I definitely agree with that premise. What I wanted to do in Cognitive View is build a new kind of search engine. That was the original concept, and basically I was fascinated.
This is 2001, after the crash.
Yes. So 98, I saw Google launching. I think I was one of the first users of Google back in 98, or even a bit earlier than that, when I was in the academia, in the physics faculty, and I really was so excited about it. My mind was exploding. I was thinking of even quitting my master's just to try to go there and see if I could work there. I was really excited about it. And a couple years after that, as I was kind of finishing my master's, thinking about what I want to do next, I got really fascinated by a branch of machine learning called genetic algorithms, evolutionary programming, that entire space. And I was like, instead of giving all people the same algorithm for search, what if I could personalize the algorithm that each person gets, right? Because, for example, when both of us are searching for stuff related to quantum field theory, you probably, I don't know you that deep, but you probably
not my expertise.
Yes, exactly. For stuff that are more, for the amateur, right? Like, while I will look for stuff that are probably deeper, because I spent some time.
That's your field, right?
Yeah.
You spend time in that field.
Exactly. So I was like, what if we could create a system that will evolve to the personality or to the needs of each of its users, right? So that was the principle. We built some really cool technology, basically an evolutionary programming engine that will automatically create algorithms. And this is like 2001, 2002 I'm talking about.
Wow.
And I wanted to apply this to consumer land, right? I was always a B2C guy. I want to apply it to consumer land. and there was just like no takers, right? Like both my co-founders as well as investors, they were like, we're not going to do anything in B2C. This needs to be B2B. So we pivoted to the area of basically organizing content for enterprises, right? So if you think of like a mainframe system, it generates a bunch of reports, a bunch of data. It's all ASCII, right? It's all a bunch of ASCII. And at the time, there were the task of turning all of that ASCII into, say, Excel or Oracle or stuff like that required programming, required you to build a specialized program that is, that is a bunch of regex and heuristics and stuff like that to understand that particular type of content. So what we've done is applied our engine to this wall, and basically you'd give us a bunch of examples, and we would learn how to turn to structure all of that content. So that was cool. Definitely from a technology perspective, it was cool, but honestly, it wasn't exciting to me. And so I was like, okay, no, knock yourself out. I'll go back to the academic world, right? So that was the story then. But there are a bunch of lessons learned that I took with me from that experience. I think the first one, probably the most important, is you need to be extremely judicial when it comes to picking your co-founders, right? Super judicial, and you need to be very stingy with the amount of co-founders. Like from my perspective, no kidding, because we had, we had like 5 or 6 co-founders.
So the co-founders are key, they're important, but when you're saying stingy, you mean the amount of co-founders?
Yes,
like
I'm saying the amount and the quality and the vibe, okay? So like the optimal number of co-founders in my book is 2. 1 is too little, okay? You can do 3. In some rare cases, if you have a very open personality, maybe you could do 4. If everyone know their role and it's super kind of tight, but I would go for 2 or at most 3, right? And not more than that if I could help it. Definitely today. And I think
what led you in your in the experience? I'm guessing you had 4, or how many co-founders did you have at the company?
In Cognivue, we had, I think, 5 or 6.
Oh, okay, got it. And what and having that many, what was it? The disconnect, the miscommunication on like the responsibilities, or like where did it go haywire?
I think first of all, to take a group of 5 Jews and convince them to walk on the same direction, it's not trivial, right? So you need to kind of take that into account. But I think beyond that, I think one of the challenges that happen in startups is, initially you're like an embryo, right? Like a bunch of cells. Everyone can do everything. It's kind of multifunction, etc. And then, just like an embryo grows, the cells start separating into functions, right? Like they become like bone cells and this cell and that. And similarly, founders need to sort of break and separate and own certain areas and pull their weight, right? And one of the challenges that happen is that you start some hierarchy starting to be built in an organic way, right? Like one of them is the CEO, one of them is the CTO or the VP engineering or something like that, right? So there's some ownership. And then from a group where everyone were equal, it develops into a group where not everyone are equal, or at least in a certain area not, right? So, and also if you have by chance a situation where some of the people are not as strong or do not own their turf as much, these are like situations where the chances for bad blood or the chances for problems grows exponentially, right? So I think that it's super important, first of all, to be judicial, to really know the people that you're marrying. In a way, I think of co-founding as not only a wedding, but actually a Catholic wedding, right? You can't really divorce. It's super hard to divorce. Typically, it breaks the company apart, stuff like that. So super important to make that call because there's no going back. And then, if it's two people, you can divide and conquer and stuff like that. But as you add more and more people, the chances of something going on is exponential. Now, there's another element, which is other people join the company, executives, first employees, things like that. And they might take a bigger role, or they might have more clout than one or two of the founders, right? And that creates also a problem because those people are supposed to be founders, supposed to be the leadership of the company, right, etc. But then there's someone comes and people listen to him. So all of this kind of is super complex kind of energy to untangle. That I would recommend just being very, very smart about it.
That makes a ton of sense. As you talk about those early employees and talent at a different phase in the company as well, a lot can happen and a lot changes. And depending on personalities as well, you might not have someone that has that authoritative personality, but they have that title, right? And so that can be confusing for a lot of the talent as well. Yeah, that's a great angle to this as well. So you after Cognivue, you went back to academia, like you mentioned. You said, "All right, I'm out. Do what you want to do." To work on some really fascinating projects. I got to see a number of the things that you discussed during this time. My question is, were any of these projects in academia, when at this point in time, when you left Cognivue and you went back to academia, were they influential for what became the next startup of Dapper? And what did you take away from at that moment, that academia experience?
I would say that what I did in my PhD, that by the way, I left, I didn't finish. It's important for history to say. So what I did in my PhD actually influenced everything that I'm doing all the way to now, right? So I'll try to explain. Okay, so I was at the time super passionate about this branch of science that was just emerging. It was a startup of its own called complex systems, right? So it deals with complex networks. It deals with emergent phenomena, right? Like what happens on the roads, what happens in cells inside the body. If you look at it as a bunch of atoms, a bunch of units, a bunch of agents that interact in some complex way, right? So, Stephen Wolfram wrote a whole book about that. There's Barabashi, there's a bunch of people that have wrote about it. And that was a field of science that I was super excited about. And in particular, I decided to try and go and do a large network analysis, a complex network analysis of the internet. That was a
complex network analysis of the internet.
Of the entire internet.
Of the entire internet. And we're talking more or less what year, from what you remember?
About 2003.
2003. Okay.
And so when I talk about internet, I'm not talking about website, I'm talking about routers. All of the routers on the internet, all of the ISPs, all of the infrastructure. How does it evolve?
The highways.
How does it grow?
The highways,
yes. So the first thing is, how do you get the data, right? Like there's no place that you can go and buy it. And the typical way it was done at the time was you get some funding from the NSF, you'll send a bunch of your friends in other universities, like 20 of your friends, a server that would do things like ping and traceroute and some other things in order to map the internet. So I looked at that and I said, that's a bunch of crap. The way to do it is through crowdsourcing. You cannot really understand the internet from 20 vantage points because it's much, much bigger and it requires many more vantage points, right? It's like mapping all the roads by just putting cameras in 20 highways, right? It doesn't make sense, and you can start seeing the connection. And so I said, well, let's harness everyone, and we built. I basically pitched it to the EU. The EU has this science fund. I pitched it to the EU. I found a thesis advisor.
European Union, or what,
yes.
When you say EU, okay.
The European Union has like billions of dollars in science funding every year. So I raised money for this project. I built a lab. I hired people. I found a thesis advisor that was excited about it, and we built basically a software agent. I don't know if you remember the time of SETI at home. Have you ever heard of SETI at home? Yeah, so SETI at home was a software that you install on your computer, and when it was dormant, when you didn't use it, it would download data from telescopes, from radio telescopes, to look for extraterrestrial entities. Right?
Okay.
So you could join in the fun of being part of science. It was basically crowdsourcing compute. Right? And I said, okay, this is a cool concept. Let's crowdsource location, right? So we'll put that agent on the internet. Thousands of people from all over the world will install it, and then we'll be able to map the entire internet in no time. And basically, that's what happened. We built that agent. We put it on. There was a website at the time. What was it? The nerds would go, well, we'll just put it, we just put it there, and thousands of people started installing it. But the real insight that I got from that experience is we put on our website a leaderboard of who's making the most basically measurements for the project. Right?
So you're incentivizing now all the people that are participating in.
Yeah. But I didn't know that it would open up a whole kind of worm. I just thought it would be a cute kind of, like a PHP script with a leaderboard by country, by team, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People gone crazy, right? Like we blocked the amount of measurements you can do, because beyond a certain amount, it looks like you have a virus on your computer, right?
Right.
So we can. And then people started installing our software on all of their computers in their university, in their campus, right? All kinds of stuff like that. So that was my first kind of experience with crowdsourcing.
So two things from that story, which is really cool. One is it's already becoming really apparent your fascination with networks and the interconnectivity. And that plays a big role in a number of future things that you do, including what you're currently doing now. So that's really cool. And then the other, what you mentioned about gamification, did you at any point in time, out of just pure curiosity, had you incorporated those type of gamification type of incentives on things, on other projects you have?
Yeah.
And it always goes, they always work.
Yeah, it's a super effective thing, right? So, for example, at Dapper, what Dapper was out my take on building the semantic web, right? It was like the Web 2.0, and my idea was, well, if you can take any website and turn it into an API, you can build a lot of new applications. right? Like what's called mashups at the time, widgets. I don't know if you remember this thing. So I'm like, the challenge is that those websites didn't have APIs at the time, right? Like Facebook didn't have API, Google didn't have API. No one had any APIs. So what Dapper was the sort of the world's ultimate scraper in a sense, right? So you would go to the website, or you go to Dapper's website, and it will look like you put in, say, Facebook, right? And it will load up something that looks like Facebook that you just click with your mouse and say, okay, I want that field, right? And you give it names, you give it semantics. You say, okay, this is a profile picture, this is a post, this is the title of the post, whatnot. And this is how you log in, right? So you would basically teach our machine learning engine how to interact with that website, right? And then we will expose to you a REST API and a bunch of other things like it that you can access, you can query and get information from that website coming through us, right? So you have a Lego block. In fact, I have here next to me, you don't see it, I have a wall made of 50,000 pieces of Lego that we commissioned for the Web 2.0 conference of 2007, right? So that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was lots of fun. So you had then, at some point we got to like 200,000 APIs running through our system, right? Like with all of those different websites, and people were building all of this stuff and plugging it into Google widgets and Yahoo pipes and building applications with it. And it was kind of really fun, but didn't make any money, right? So we were like, we noticed something interesting, because we would go to, say, Expedia and tell them, hey, look at all the use cases that people are doing with your content, with your website, right? Like this widget for searching flights, and this coming weather plus hotels and all this kind of cool stuff. And they were like, well, how much are we getting paid for that, right? They were like, this is our content, we want to get paid.
Right.
And then we went to the same people and said, you know what? We can take content from your website and put it in ads, so that instead of these really cheap or stupid banner ads that you have dynamic contextual ads. And they would ask us, well, how much do I need to pay for that, right? So
and by
thing,
banner, by banner, it's a static message, regardless of who comes.
Exactly.
And the dynamic is, it's a personalized message based on your recent searching history to be able to. So obviously, one is way more impactful than the other. And it's funny that now that's super common. So you tell me back then that was not a thing.
No, it wasn't a thing. We basically invented the concept of dynamic retargeting, dynamic advertising. You know, those ads that change based on who you are. And you know, it's kind of like a theme. It's that also kind of vibes with my original concept for cognitive view. So it came natural for us. But it was really amusing that you go with the same basically technology to the same people. At one time they're asking how much money are we getting, and in the other time they're asking how much do we need to pay you, right? And basically it's the same thing. So we're like, okay, cool. So we'll monetize through by turning advertising into valuable thing. And we ran this whole movement called advertising sucks, right? Like fixing advertising. We had a website, we have meetings, gatherings in different cities every month. It was really lots of fun. And that was the time of the early days of real-time bidding. If you ever heard the concept, these exchanges, the Google exchange, the Yahoo exchange, and we were like one of the first 3 companies on Google's real-time bidding exchange, and we and it was the Wild West at the time because you had all of the information, right? I would put a cookie and I would know basically every website you go to, right? So we could do things that were super tailored, right? Like you'd go to, for example, to a site like Zillow, right? Like looking for a house, and we will give you an ad with calculating the mortgage that you need for that particular house you're looking at, right? Or we'll know that went to Priceline and searched for flights to New York, and then we'll find you in some stupid blog, and we'll show you an ad for Expedia with the flights that you need, right? So it worked really well. We went through the crazy time of the recession of 2008. And that was a super painful moment for us, like everyone, but it was kind of, for me in particular, as an entrepreneur, because I was about to close a round in September of 2008. I moved to the US in August of 2008, right? And then
what round was this? Was this?
This was the B round.
B round. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I was supposed to get a term sheet on September 15th, but instead of a term sheet, I got a phone call because all the markets were crashing and everyone stopped investing. So thankfully, my investors at the time were a great fund called Excel Partners.
Yeah, of course.
Excel, so they continue to back us through that crunch and through that those challenges. Obviously, I had to cut some people, but then things took a turn for the better, and eventually, as you mentioned, we sold the company to Yahoo, which was a really good outcome for us.
And when I saw this, so for many founders out there, the whole building something, hopefully taken in public, right? But building something, and then at some point getting acquired, that whole dance of acquisition, it's a very unknown space for many reasons. A lot of founders, they go through experience. Some have a good experience, some have bad experience. But I would love to learn with this acquisition, which I know was, I don't know, 50 million or something like that. 55 million. So when Yahoo decided to acquire you, so they were at this point in time, how did that evolve? They were customers and they said, and they kept seeing the evolution of your product, and then they kept wanting to learn more about it. And one of my initial reactions is, where in that dance do you reveal? Is there do you reveal too much? Is there too little to reveal? Like, how do you know how to do that dance? Because I feel like for many things that potential customer these are massive companies that also have departments that can be very similar, that can replicate or mimic whatever it is that you're trying to do. Like, so what was that something in that resonated with your journey as well? Like, were those obstacles there as well?
Yeah. All right. So there are a bunch of things there to unpack. First, Yahoo was a partner of ours and basically a reseller, right? They had the media, we had the technology, and many of their teams would sell a product to their advertisers as a premium product, and they saw the impact, right? So they had first row seat for seeing the impact of what we built. Then they try to also do it themselves, and they realize that it's difficult, that it's non-trivial. So it's not like they were like clueless and they were like, okay, we just buy them or stuff. No, they try to do it themselves, And I have a funny story about what happened after they acquired it, and the team that tried it became my subordinates. Kind of amusing thing.
Yeah.
And then I think what really sealed the deal there was that they saw that we are growing regardless of their
Involvement
ownership.
of them
Yes.
trying to.
Yes, with Google and with Omniture and all of these different companies. So the first meeting that we had about M&A, I wasn't aware that it's about M&A, and it was kind of amusing also because we had a mix-up in the hours. So I was there, but I was kind of late to the meeting, and the SVP of advertising at Yahoo was really started the meeting really pissed. I was like, I was late. Yeah, but we had some champions inside, and we were like, we kept on engaging. And initially, I was running it as a totally separate thing, right? Like no one other than my co-founder knew about it. Obviously, the board knew about it, but no one at the company knew about it. We kept on going. I actually went out at the time and searched for a CEO who replaced me as a CEO because I thought I wasn't what the company needed at the time to scale sales. So I actually hired a company and I found a CEO, and he was just about to start working as these conversations went. So eventually he only had the pleasure of being a CEO of Nexar of Dapper for I think 6 months or 8 months or something like that, because we were
No way.
in a company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait,
but he's a great guy. We're still friends.
When you thought about bringing in a CEO, because the way that this is already assuming that Yahoo, they would acquire you, and this. Oh no, it wasn't assuming. It was.
No.
This was. You're looking the other route, which is like,
Yes.
What do we do next in terms of scaling? And we've hit a certain roadblock where I'm at the point where we need to bring in somebody that can take it to the next level. Okay, got it. So you were making these moves without knowing at the moment that Yahoo was already looking at you through an acquisition lens, rather than I guess a potential competitor.
Yeah, but I say an important thing in that game is always to play all the way to the end as if it's not happening, right? You cannot lose a step, right? Because it's possible that it won't happen, right? These companies, these large companies, you never know what could happen, right? They could fire the CEO and the new CEO doesn't like you, or they can change strategy, and Yahoo change strategy like every other week. Right, so you always need to execute and grow the numbers and create that competitive threat also on those large companies to keep to even have a chance in closing a run. I think one of the mistakes that people do when they get into M&A conversations, they flattered about it. They want to cater to the big company. And they're basically are cutting corners on their core business, and that ends up either downgrading the outcome or even removing it entirely. So I really recommend continuing executing and keeping the conversation as tight as possible, as small team as possible. If you can do it only with one of your board members, do it only with one of your board members. If you have to have the entire board, do it just with the board. If you have to have your CFO, then just the CFO. But keep it as tight as you can and keep it out of your mind. Right? Don't think that it's happening. Don't change your habits. Don't go and buy cars and do stupid things like that. Right? Just keep on executing. That's from my perspective.
I love that. I love that, because in negotiation, the reason you're at that table negotiating is because what you've accomplished so far. So that the more you continue accomplishing, the more they're gonna want, and the better leverage you'll have eventually, possibly, for something to happen. So just keep focused. I love that. That makes a ton of sense. So when you did go through the acquisition at Yahoo, and now you transition from founder to now working at this massive company. Any experience from that journey that was useful for you with Nexar? Because you did spend some time with Yahoo. So what was that transition where you said, because of this, then I was able to leverage that, and as I created Nexar?
Yeah, so I learned a lot about managing people at scale, about running processes properly, things like that, about broadening your ambition. I think these are important lessons that you can learn from spending time in a big machine, even though Yahoo was dysfunctional in some parts of my tenure there, but nonetheless, you can take on, if you keep you on the lookout, you can take on these lessons. You can look at some mentors that are there, look at how they operate, etc. I think it was something that I definitely benefited from. But I think you also can do a lot as a founder coming into a large company. You can do a lot by remembering that you're a founder coming into a large company, right? So what I mean by that is there are certain things that are just status quo inside this inertia inside those companies, and you can challenge those status quo, especially if you don't care about being fired, right? So I think, from my perspective, I totally didn't care about being fired because that would mean just acceleration of of a portion of my process, and I can go and do another startup. Life is good. So I didn't really care about that, and I just voiced my opinion, and did what I thought was right. And what turned out to be is that people built respect to you because of that. Now, I had no intention, other than being Israeli, and that's my kind of nature. I had no intention of building clout with the executive branch. I really didn't see it as a career that I'm building or stuff like that. There was no ladder. I was just like spending time building shit that I thought were important, and saying what I think that is right. And a great example, I was in some C staff of with my boss at the time and a bunch of VPs, etc., and they were talking about HR turnover, right? Which was at the time, I think it was like 20%, 25%, and I heard that, and I was shocked. Like,
that's crazy high.
That's crazy high, right? Like, in all of my time, 4 years at Dapper, 2 people left. That was, so they were like, what do you think it should be? And I was like, 0%. Why would we invest in hiring people for them to go up? And it looked at me like, oh, you know nothing, you're like a... But then that what happened in my team, because I drove them towards a mission that they got excited about, right? So I think that it's worth kind of just staying true, being honest, if you don't want to build a corporate career, right? Like, and I wouldn't recommend it as an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you build through that, you have a gift that is unique, right? Like there are at the grand scheme of things, when you look at the planet, the billions of people on the planet, only a handful of them actually built a company and saw it through and got to an exit. This is an experience that is worth its weight in gold, right? So then, resting and vesting, as they call it, inside some corporate thing is something that is not utilizing your skills. So I came out after the 3 years that I was with you, but I came out with a few assets. The biggest asset that I took from Yahoo is my co-founder at Nexar, is Bruno, which
he came from Yahoo.
Yes, he was my boss at Yahoo, actually.
So you left Yahoo with your boss, and now you're partner for Nexar. So tell me, what is I want to be? I know we have a little bit of time, so I want to cover a couple things here with Nexar. With Nexar, what led you to come up with Nexar? Like how did that transition, and what was what led you to the problem that you wanted to focus solving for Nexar?
Yeah. So back in 2012, when I was in Yahoo, 2013, I participated in something called Singularity University. It's in NASA in Moffett.
I love Singularity University. Oh my God, yeah, they do some incredible.
So I did their 10-week program. And by the way, it's just across from Yahoo. It was very convenient, and that opened my mind on what's coming next in the next 20 years. And the key thing that was, a year later when I left Yahoo, a key belief that I had, that Bruno shared, was that everything that we did in the cloud, in machine learning and AI and all this kind of stuff, we'll be able to do at the edge, at the device level, eventually, right? So if you can do intelligence at the edge, then you ask yourself, which improvements to the human condition can you create from that, right? Like you can do things around health, around sports and exercise. You can do things around the real estate maybe, and management of cities. And what we kept on coming back to is the importance of intelligence at the edge is that you can do things in real time. And now you ask yourself, which use cases happen in real time in our life, in our daily life, right? So we're not talking rockets anymore, right? We're talking just regular people, right? And I'm like, okay, one, if I say the wrong thing to my wife and I have to really think fast about, that's one area. But barring that, I'm not going to build a technology around that. Driving is actually the most real-time experience that we do experience every day, and it's the one where real-time decision-making really comes into play. So we kept on going back to driving, and we looked at it, and there was this conundrum, there was this paradox that we started to unfold, which is they keep on telling us that more and more technology is coming to the vehicles and they become safer and safer. And then you look at the statistics and more people die every year, right? So what gives, right? Like if you look at the statistics of how many people are dead or how many collisions happen every year in the US, you'll see this rising graph, barring Corona time, right? And you're like, what the hell, right? There's supposed to be. I drove in the first Google car before it was called Waymo in 2013 when I was at Singularity University. Like, oh, it's just around the corner, autonomous vehicles, right? And you have mobile car, and we were like, it's not going to work. It's not going to impact. And the reason why it's not impacting is because every car is like Mad Max. Every car is to its own, right? What you need is for all of the cars to open their eyes, to understand what's going on in real time and share that information with all the other cars. If you manage to do crowdsourcing, remember crowdsourcing connect? You manage to do
I was just gonna say crowdsourcing.
Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony. I know nothing. I just have one idea and I keep on just applying it.
I love it. If it keeps working, why stop?
Yeah, exactly.
Complete sense.
So we decided to go on a mission to build a massive network of eyes on the road to crowdsource what's happening, collect a massive amounts of data from the real world, and start building this application. So we thought initially of, hey, maybe we can work with the car OEMs. But this is like 2015. The car OEMs were MIAs on this whole matter. So we're like, okay, no dibs, no problem. We'll build our own. So we got into dashcam manufacturing, into hardware. And I really don't recommend getting into hardware. It's really like all of the white hair on my head is just from Harvard. Don't do it. But we
wait, you say Harvard?
Harvard.
The university?
No, not Harvard, the university. Hardware, like building real stuff, not just software, but hardware.
Oh, hardware. Got you. Hardware.
Yes.
Okay.
So we actually went and built cameras. We went to Shenzhen. We found some partners. We started building real devices, started to learn how to sell those devices, how to sell them online, build a direct-to-consumer brand, start, scaling it, a bunch of hassle, lots of pain. But, long story short, today, we have a network of 500,000 vehicles, all of them at our command, right? Like all of those vehicles with our cameras connected to our brain.
So you were able to make it happen, because hardware, to your point, it's a whole nother ball game in terms of challenges, of obstacles, before it even gets out the gate, to then have challenges in terms of sales, in terms of all the other things. And you were able to accomplish that. How? Was there a moment?
It's a lot of pain. I really don't.
Would you have done it any other way? I know now it's working, but do you believe? Obviously, hindsight is this is all in hindsight. But would you believe that was there any other way before even manufacturing yourself? You couldn't leverage it.
First of all, with hardware, it's never working. It's about not failing, right? Like the conversation I had before we started talking with my SVP of sales that was mad because we ran out of inventory in New York for cameras, right? So it's a constant pain. First of all, let me put it there. But
let me clarify. Yeah.
Yes. But today, Nexar is collecting more visual data from the US than anyone else. Maybe Tesla, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. But other than Tesla, there's no one else that collect. We're collecting something like 300 million frames every month. We see 200 million miles. We have 400 million map updates from the US every month, right?
How did you? So this is, first of all, those numbers are insane. That's incredible that you got to where you are right now. What did you do right that you believe others did wrong? Were you the only player that thought about, like, this should be a network, and then from the network data you can resell that data to governmental agencies or insurance companies, or were there other players? And like, what do you think worked for you guys, or what you would have done better maybe as well?
Oh, there's a bunch of things I would have done better, but you remember the thing that you said early on about ignorance is bliss?
Yes.
So I think that's like 50% of any success we have is that we didn't understand how difficult it would be, right? More experienced people just didn't
would never try it because
would
they
never
know
try it.
that it would be unsurmountable odds.
Yes. And then the other thing is a bit, we call it like the siren call of local maxima. Okay, and it's a bit of a loaded sentence. So we could build Nexar just as a dashcam and services company. There are amazing companies that build amazing businesses on that, right? Like there are companies like Lytix and Samsara and DriveCam and all these companies that cater to the needs of fleets and different, and they make good money, right? They make good money and they don't bother with all the data because that data is a hassle, right? Like localizing a traffic sign from a camera that is installed in some random angle or whatever is actually hard. It's a lot of technology that you need to build. And it's not obvious that you have a business. So you have to be obsessed. You know, Bruno and I were just obsessed with this a question of, can we see the entire planet every second, right? That was our ambition, and it's like moonshoting, right? Like it's a really crazy thing that you don't really need in order to build a good business. You can build a good business just on that. So in a way, the thing that we did that other people didn't do is kept on going towards our North Star and not stopping on the way for a perfectly fine business, right? and it's
but just focusing for you, data.
Yes.
So it's just how much more can we collect? Now, how do you do the data play? Because I know, you know, I've sold previously to enterprises, and you have to hand everything on a plate, on a silver platter, a gold platter, with, you know, and paint the entire picture for them of the 10 different avenues, how they can make money, and it's going to be quick, and it's going to be all this stuff, right? How do you do that? One, with governmental agencies, which is really, I mean, that's, you know, Fortune 500 is one thing. Now you're dealing with a lot of political stuff, right? Like on the other end with government agencies. What was like the first product that you said, this is how we're going to package the data, and no one's telling you how you're going to use it either. Like, I don't know, like, was there a roadmap? You guys just had to like think creatively and say like, how do you package this so that people understand that they're going to have to pay us for this, you know?
So I believe that you, as an entrepreneur, you know, when I was young, I was part of an organization called Pagwash, which is like a peace organization, whatnot, and they had a climate, and they had that sentence, say, think global, act local. And I think entrepreneurship is very much like that. It's like you need to have the North Star of your 10-year vision in mind, but you need to be super pragmatic about what you're doing next month or in the next quarter. And so we were like, yeah, we want to see the entire US and stuff, but let's start with one city, right? And let's convince that city that we can deliver some value to them that they couldn't get from someone else. You know what it was? It was monitoring of construction in Las Vegas. That was the
monitoring of construction in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And what was so crucial for them to know about the construction?
So construction zones in cities, you know, all those orange cones, all this kind of stuff. They're a super difficult issue. They're a huge issue from traffic management perspective, from a risk and collisions. They're magnets for collisions, and all of that funnels to like 4 people at the end of the day that sit in some lowly office, and they're like 2 people driving around. And in a city like Las Vegas that is growing, they need to manage like 1,000 different construction zones in a month, right? They have no ability to do it. They're just chasing their tails. And we're like, okay, we have, a few thousand vehicles in the city of Las Vegas. We can actually monitor on a daily basis, every 8 hours, all of the construction. And you just sit in your office. You don't even have to go out. You have all of that in a nice dashboard, and you can start handling this, right? Like if someone is supposed to clean up the walk zone at 6 a.m. and it's still there in 7 a.m., you can find them $5,000 per 15 minutes or something like that, right? So there's like good saving, good reasons for that. And that was how we started. And the reason why we started with that is because that's what the customers asked, right? Like we really started very pragmatic. Now we have a map of all of the US, of all the signs in the US, all the construction in the US. We have like Google Street View, but with images from today rather than from a year ago, right? And we have an API platform.
And I'm guessing, I was just going to say, I'm guessing you have certain analytics now that are catered specifically for that, for the type of numbers that they need to know when it comes to construction and
too many applications. And, not only that.
And when you said that the way you found this out was because you asked the customer, I love this. I love this because it sounds it is that simple. And I've had conversations with founders. Now the question is, these conversations with customers, were these discovery calls? I mean, did you reach out to them and you're like, hey, we have all this data. Does anything come to mind to you of what matters to you about what could possibly, and you just let them tell you what the product was? Yeah,
that's exactly what we did. Look, one of my friends from the Valley is a guy named Eric Ries that was pushing, when I was in the Valley, he was pushing the whole concept of lean startup. Like one of the first thing I've done at Yahoo was actually buying 100 copies of the lean startup book and circulating it to all of the execs, right? It was kind of music. So I was a big believer in that, right? In this notion of customer development, it's called, customer discovery, 4 steps to the epiphany, all this kind of stuff. And we just applied that playbook. And you learn a lot. Like, for example, LA acquired or subscribed to our construction monitoring data as well. But they had access to our virtual camera service, basically this live Google Street View service. And they were like, oh, we can actually use that to monitor where there are homeless people, so we can go and help them, right? We can monitor how restaurants use the curb. So people are starting to come up with use cases that I would never think of.
Right. So once they already have it in their hands and they're getting one solution for a certain problem, it helps them ignite other, we can do this. We can do that. Yeah. That's, I know that the time is, I want to be really respectful of your time.
Thank you.
I have one last question. And then, what are the implications of this connectivity? Where do you see, you talked about having this 10-year, you got to have a vision. Where would be yours, for Nexar?
Well, I think that the most immediate thing in the next kind of 2 years, 3 years, is we have amassed so much data that we can use real advancements in AI that are now happening, that are not coming, like large language models, to unlock the physical world for any question you'd like to ask, right? Like, imagine kind of saying, okay, I want to know how's the line outside Katz Deli right now, right? Or where which roads are still have snow after the storm last night? Or, is there parking nearby that on the street that I can go and catch? Right?
Incredible. So literally converting the imagery, the language of imagery, connecting it to what is the language of text, in essence, combining those worlds together, since you have the nervous system of everything, and allowing someone to just do that simple search and getting results in instant. That's insane.
Yeah, and then if you look further into the future, already today, the data that we collect is used by some of the largest AV companies in the world to train their engines, to train their brain, right?
Wow.
So you could imagine how you could start having all of this advancements and build in AI today to build a new framework, a new playbook in how you think about safety, right? Like today, your car doesn't slow down because there's a reflection of lights coming around the bend, but you do, right? Like, because you understand that reflection means that a car is going to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, in a few years, the car will be able to do that, and it will, and you'll be able to provide cars with clairvoyancy, with seeing the future, with seeing what's happening 100 yards, 200 yards, 500 yards ahead of them, so that you'll be able to prevent all collisions. Because at the end of the day, I'll just leave you with this thing. Any collision that ever happened between cars could have been prevented if 30 seconds before it, I would go and kind of tell the driver, hey, you're about to get into a collision in 30 seconds, right? Because that's all you need. He's gonna change course, he's gonna slow down,
get aware.
That's all you need. You need 30 seconds. Today, cars only have 2 seconds, right? That's the amount of time that you have, because 2 seconds ahead of them, there's a truck, and they don't see beyond it, right? But if all of these cars will start sharing information, then the radius around it becomes larger and larger. You get to 10, 20, 30 seconds, you eliminated collision. And that's where what we're aiming for. And it's not going to be based just on our cameras. It will be based on an open network of networks, right? Like it will be based on GM and Ford and Volvo and other camera manufacturers and other AV all coming together on a standard-based approach. And we just want to build a digital fabric that will allow that.
Incredible. Eran, is there anything that our group can help in any way, any particular message for all the founders that are venture-backed, that are in their journeys, anything else that we can be of help, anything that comes to mind, because you've given us so much time, so many amazing lessons. I just want you to know personally that if there's any way that I can be of help through the network, through time, please, like I'll be more than happy to. And again, just thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing this story.
With pleasure. And I would say one thing. I'm always on the lookout for great use cases. So if you, any one of you, imagine like a great use case that would come from marrying, a large language model, GPT-like AI applications with the physical world, with real-time sensing and seeing all of the US, what would you do with it? These are things that I'm always on the lookout for. So, feel free to reach out.
I love that.